Can science explain everything? Hi, my name is Michael Otts and I'm an author and speaker. And in my travels speaking to university students across Europe, this is a question that comes up quite often. You see, we live at a time when people have incredible confidence in science's ability to answer life's great questions and solve life's great problems. We've seen just in the last few months the incredible ability of science to develop a vaccine which is being rolled out and hopefully giving us an end in sight to the current pandemic. And so it's natural that we have a massive confidence in science in general. But can science explain everything? Is it all that we need? Well, that was certainly the view of the late great physicist Stephen Hawking. In his final book before his death, The Grand Design, he said this: "Philosophy is dead. Scientists are the torchbearers of truth in the modern world." See, Stephen Hawking was convinced that actually if you want to discover truth about our world, the only way you'll discover it is through science. Now, that view that he articulated in his book is one that I hear very commonly expressed by university students all over the place. And it's understandable, but we'd also want to answer some questions about that kind of view. Firstly, to say that philosophy is dead is a kind of ironic thing for Stephen Hawking to say, because actually his statement is ultimately not a statement of science, is it? There is no scientific way you could verify the truth of that statement. It is actually a statement of philosophy. He's using the very thing that he's debunking to make his points. And that is why this idea that science can explain everything was dismissed in academia at least 100 years ago. It was called logical positivism. People saw that this concept was internally incoherent. It didn't make sense. But also it's a little bit arrogant, isn't it? I mean, here we are in the middle of the University of Southampton, and of course we have the science departments around us, but they're not the only departments or faculties in this university. There are other faculties and disciplines which are equally valid. If we want to discover truth about our world, science will help us in many ways, but there'll be other areas, particularly as we look, for instance, at history, where we'll have to use other disciplines and tools to discover what is true. Science isn't the only tool available in our toolbox, as it were. But also there's a more personal reason why this idea that science explains everything is unsatisfactory. And that is, it ends up giving us a very shallow view of life. I mean, think about it. There are all sorts of areas of life that are hard to explain scientifically. Are we to say that the only things that really matter are those that can be explained in scientific ways? A very harrowing book is the book by Paul Kalanithi, When Breath Becomes Air. It's effectively his memoirs. He wrote them as he battled cancer as a young medical surgeon. And it's harrowing because you know that he's going to die. And as he writes his book, reflecting on his own mortality and his imminent death, he reflects on his own views and beliefs about the world. As a young medical student, he had dismissed the idea of God and become an atheist. He said the only things that exist in our world are those things which can be materially explained. He was a materialist. But then he said this: to assume that the only things that really exist are those which can be materially explained is not to simply dismiss God from the universe. It's also to dismiss most of the things that make life worth living, like love and beauty and morality. Think of those things that are really important to us in all sorts of ways, not just in the lecture room, but in the rest of life. Can they be explained away scientifically? Or have we ended up with a very shallow view of life? But let me also just say this. It's our conviction that not only does God make sense of things in life like love and justice, but actually an understanding of God also makes sense of science itself. It's no surprise that the modern study of science actually developed in a time in history, in a part of the world where people had a conviction that God existed, that God created our world with order, that there are laws to nature because there was a lawgiver to put those laws in place. Far from debunking the idea of science, it was a conviction of a creator God as outlined in the Bible that motivated people to study science and still does so today. Now, this is a big question, and we're going to be discussing it more this evening, and we're going to be having a special guest join us. So do join us at 7:30 for a live discussion with Dr. John Lennox, who is an expert in this field, and we'll really enjoy hearing what he has to say. And also, why not message us your questions? If you message them through at any points, you'll not only receive an answer to your questions, but you'll also get a treat sent to you as well. So you can't say better than that. But do stay with us through this week as we explore these big questions together.